Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Some big Rostermania developments over the last 24 hours with Saadhak of Loud suggesting that in his opinion, Sacy and Aspas may look to team up again for next season. He says there's no intel here, there's nothing that he's heard about this, but he just feels like based on his experience with those players and how they appreciate each other's company, that potentially they could look to team up somewhere. That of course would look to potentially mean that either Sacy could go to Leviathan to join Aspas, or maybe Aspas could go to Sentinels to join Sacy. But what would that mean to that potential lineup? Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today, of course. Some updates of the game as well today. Of course, Vi's arriving into the game today as well. This I thought was kind of interesting just to look back on the plat chat. Now this is so difficult to do, and at the time, was this not completely unreasonable given the circumstances that Edward Gaming, or certainly the Chinese scene, hadn't really shown as much promise on an international level as we expected, and the top players in the world are just so close and competitive that it's so difficult to do this anyway. Of course, in hindsight, it's easy to criticize, but you know, obviously at the time, nothing too much wrong with this in some aspects, and we'll get on to Aspas here over the coming minutes. Of course, some Rostermania stuff. This, of course, not true. You guys might remember that story from quite a while ago now. This player Malibu, who was using this AI-generated image here and was also cheating and everything. So you know, just be careful on your timelines, because I'm sure you're going to see some things around over the next few days that are, you know, bait and not necessarily real. This is a pretty obvious bait, but, you know, thought I'd mention it regardless. One of the other real moves, though, from NRG was the following. So Philip Kovalev, of course, their chef over the last couple of years, has been let go. And this is a pretty big deal. I'm hoping the best for Phil, just because, well, first of all, his food always looked absolutely spectacular. I'm pretty sure that he's relatively notable, like on social media as well, good TikTok following, stuff like that. So I think he'll be fine in terms of getting another opportunity. And there's going to be something out there for, you know, him to get a job in that region, whether private or in the esports world or whatever it's going to be. So, you know, wishing the best for him. But it's always been an interesting one, and I really hoped that this worked, right? Like, I loved the idea of NRG having a chef to cook all the meals for the team, manage the nutrition from the team, but unfortunately it doesn't matter how good the meals are, sometimes you're going to choke a 12-5 lead, right? And that's the problem here in general, right? So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, because I wish that this worked, and I think in some sense it probably did work, but I guess because the team didn't really deliver, they were like, you know, what's the point paying the chef? Like, the team's still losing type thing. So unfortunate, but I think like everyone was happy and pleased with his presence, and you know, unfortunately, they couldn't translate that into the several ways, but I still hope, I like to believe anyway, that that was helpful for the team, because I'd love this to be a more staple feature of other esports teams as well in their facilities, but and maybe it will be. NRG, of course, one of the very first to go for this, and now that is coming to an end. This was an interesting note as well. So Patty Tech, of course, did a phenomenal job with Heretics this year. They made the decision to say, yes, he did very well, but Mini Boo, who didn't go to Shanghai, is going to be there for the World Championship, and of course, it worked out well. They lost in the end, they were close to winning. Edward Gaming were too strong, but I think Patty Tech showed so much of his potential that he's definitely going to get some offers for next season. Potentially KOI could be on the cards, because this tweet, of course, back in April, but Ebai, owner of the team, then replies and says, you have to be a superhero, I want you to be my Batman. So replying yesterday, and obviously heavily implying that, yeah, come and join KOI. So stay tuned for that possibility. Maybe KOI Patty Tech is not out of the realms of possibility. This was an interesting one as well. So a couple of things going down over here, right? But as we can see on the right-hand side, we have what looks to be a scrim with the Cloud9 guys. So we have Cloud9 Zeppa, who still seems to be there, Cloud9 Rooney, we have T1 Arab Prince, we'll get to it in a second, Cloud9 Moose, and then of course, you know, coach of the team as well. So they've got rid of Vanity, right? We know that, but everyone else for now is going to stay, and potentially Rooney becoming of course, the in-game leader again. That's a possibility. I think they should make more changes than this personally, but it looks like this guy, T1 Arab Prince, is on their roster now. This guy is actually Rossi, who of course played on T1 this most recent season, was actually very good and consistent, I thought, on his role. And you guys can see quite clearly here on his tracker.gg page, like his connection with, you know, this is Rossi, T1 Arab Prince, it is what it is. So, you know, pretty straightforward, I think, on that one, that they're at least trialing Rossi on that Cloud9 roster, and if that goes true, and if that goes through And if that goes through and it becomes true, then that will be a very interesting development. I actually really quite like it, to be fair. I like the Rossi pickup, but I'm just not sure that, you know, keeping Zeppa and the rest of the team and Moose is really the way to go, in my opinion. Like, I think they need more wholesale changes, personally, if they want to be a top contender. But, you know, that's potentially what they're going to try and look to do. Or maybe they're going to do one trial, then another trial, then another trial to round out their roster. This as well from Sentinels, just making it relatively clear, I think, that, well, Zelsis ain't going anywhere. He definitely won't be. But, well, when we discuss Aspas in a second, let's talk about the possibilities. As Sentinels say, #1 salesman, master of vibes, heart of our team. Zelsis truly one of a kind, and Zelsis is like, yep, thanks for letting me go. So, you know, like, Zelsis in many ways just perfectly fits the personality of Sentinels as an organization, that it just makes an awful lot of sense, of course, to keep him around. The question, though, is, if anything crazy happens, does it upset the potential horizon of these teams? Now, this is from Safe posting again, so don't take it serious, but it was pretty funny. After the rise of Woot and Rians this past year, Aspas has verbally agreed to join BBL Esports to master Tiger Shane. That ain't happening. However, Aspas this year joins Lev, tries to make them the super team, and they were good. Sure, they had their ups and downs in region, but at the end of the year, they, you know, came through. They eventually made it to 3rd at the World Championship. I'm sure they'll feel like they could have won the entire thing, and Aspas getting another championship dub after what we saw from him a couple of years ago now in 2022, alongside, of course, some very notable players at the time. And this is the question from Saadhak, and Saadhak says, like, he doesn't have any intel here. He's not putting something out there that he's heard behind the scenes. It's just a theory of his, based on the way that those two teams have gone this season. Lev placed 3rd in the end, Sentinels placed 4th in the end, as to whether those two guys, Aspas and Sacy, might potentially look to team up again. And Saadhak was like, look, I'd love for it to be on Loud again and run back one of those old rosters, but, or at least, you know, to some degree, one of those old rosters, put it back together. But that's probably not going to happen. But if they are going to team up, it's almost certainly going to be on one of the organizations they are currently on. That would mean either Lev or potentially Sentinels.
Eu não falei, eu estou falando, as vozes da minha cabeça estavam falando que, para mim, Aspinas e Sacy vão estar junto o próximo ano, mano. Tipo, algo me disse no meu coração, sabe? Não sei onde, não, o mais provável que não seja na Load. Acho que não vai ser na Load, nem de brincadeira, mas eu acho que eles vão estar juntos, mano. Olha, Sentinels, voz da minha cabeça, de novo.
Pode ver.
Vazou, não vazou nada. Pior que não vazou nada, mano. É o que eu acredito, tá? Eu acredito. Mais que nada, vendo os posts de como se amam tanto, amigos. Acho que eles vão terminar jogando junto, mano. Os dois são muito bons. Os dois não atingiram a Champions, né? Então, seria algo natural, não? Não seria natural? Quizás assim na Leviathan, ou Aspas na Sentinels. Mas na teoria não seria viável o Sacy para Lev ou Aspas assim para Sentinels? Sim. Eu não sei, você sabe como é esse contrato deles, mano? Porque supostamente acabava, né? O Sacy acabava, né? Bom, então, como eu tava falando, mano, eu acho que Sacy e Aspas vão ser um duo muito procurado, tá ligado? Quizás entrar uma MBR, ou quizás ir a uma gringa, que se uma MBR não, um time brasileiro, que são uma MBR Fúria, ou ir um time da gringa. Eu acho que se eles, tipo assim, se eles falam, queremos jogar junto, e postam assim na net, né?
So there's been questions about Sacy, right? He's been the main kind of point of contention on that Sentinels team because Gen.G's the IGL done a sensational job. Even since the last off-season when we were hearing about this mystery in-game leader frying on Sentinels, that turned out to be Gen.G. Obviously, TenZ is TenZ, and Zekken is Zekken. And the numbers on his side speak for themselves here. Like, he averaged far more than anybody else in terms of kills per 24 rounds in the entire World Championship, which is just super impressive. I mean, Kang, the tournament MVP, averaged 21. Zekken was averaging 25. Buzz at 23.5. So, just insane impact from Zekken. TenZ was also phenomenal, of course, as always. He's actually right here, not far behind Zekken, between Kang and Aspas, actually, which is pretty interesting stuff. And, you know, we mentioned Zelsis a few minutes ago. So Sacy's been kind of the player that people say, well, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is he going to retire? Like, what's happening with him? And if he wants to team up with Aspas, that would be pretty interesting. Him, as in Sacy, joining Lev is the more likely, I would say, of the two. But what if they do want to team up, as potentially Saadhak believes, and Aspas says, you know what, this Lev team is good, but it's not as good as that Sentinels core. I want to go over there and play with them. And then Aspas to Sentinels is on the cards. The issue, of course, then is, well, Zekken's your duelist, Aspas is your duelist. What are you going to do? Because Zekken has been absolutely phenomenal, of course, but if you had to say over the course of an entire season who's going to be the better, more impactful player, you know, you're taking Aspas, right? I mean, he's arguably the greatest ever in the history of Valorant. So as good as Zekken is, if Aspas says, hey, I want to join, I think you probably say, well, I can't really say no to Aspas and make that deal happen. The issue is you definitely don't get rid of Zekken. I think you probably just have to change the roles, maybe. Like, if Aspas was to join because he wants to play with Sacy, I think you probably have to bring him in, but then you would probably change Zekken to another role, and therefore maybe it's Zeltis that finds himself as the odd man out. So, you know, I don't know what you guys think about that in the comments, but I think it's very unlikely that that possibility comes to pass. And to be fair to Sacy, in terms of assists per round, he was second at the entire Valorant Champions, just behind Simon, who absolutely killed it, of course, for the Edward Gaming guys. Sacy, Zeltis, Tens, all of the Sentinels boys in a line here. So that I thought was very interesting and actually really rather impressive. So it's not like Sacy was, you know, underwhelming and not doing all that much, but it's just worthy of saying that the possibility is maybe there for something very interesting to happen in this Rostermania period. But, you know, very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Just one final funny thing to mention here for you guys, because you guys may have known over the last few weeks the Ardis China related drama, right? He was getting into the beak, he was getting DDoSed, and then he decided that what it was time to do was to turn it around, bring out the Chinese flag, support the Chinese teams, and guess what? He ran it all the way up to a World Championship victory. Now, this is on, I think this is on Bilibili. So not Bilibili Gaming, the organization, but it's just like a social media video site over there in China. And obviously very popular, as you guys can tell here by the viewership on this type of stuff. And they were calling artists all sorts of names over the last couple of weeks. The Patriotic Youth, the humorous Fat Man, among many others. And it seems like, though, they've changed it around now. They're actually really on board with artists. And it does seem like relatively quickly he's been able to turn his reputation around on some level, so I thought that was actually really kind of cool. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.